Welcome to another episode of the Christian Combatives YouTube show. I am your host and servant in Jesus Christ, Paladin Actual. Because today is October 31st, many people are celebrating not only Reformation Day, which I know is first on your calendar for this date, but also a holiday called Halloween. Have you heard of this? And a better question to ask is it a sin to celebrate Halloween? Well, let's get into it. This is an interesting question, and I've seen some people answer it definitively one way or the other, and I've seen a lot of people kind of give their input. That's kind of what I want to do here. I would say that it doesn't have to be a sin to celebrate Halloween. It isn't necessarily a sin, depending on what you are doing, what you are involved in, and what your intent is. Now, it's not 100% intent. You can actually sin unintentionally. You can think that you're doing the right thing. You can bring strange fire to God, one might say, and as a result, that could be sin itself. So you can sin through intent. You could also sin through ignorance. Excuse me. So intent has a lot to do with it. Ignorance has something to do with it as well. People can participate in something they shouldn't be participating in without even knowing it. So there's a lot of questions to kind of form, like, am I sinning in the way that I am celebrating Halloween? Or is anything to do with Halloween sinful? And there's a bunch of questions that I wanted to consider, and I invite you, the listener/viewer, all five of you, if you would like, to give me some more things to chew on, to think about, to kind of determine whether or not Halloween is a sin. Now, as backstory, we didn't celebrate Halloween growing up. I mean, I knew it was a thing. We celebrated All Saints Day, but we never went trick-or-treating. I think we had costumes for this is always the get-around, like a fall festival or whatever it was, the Harvest Festival. We should just have it a Reformation Festival. It's the same day, and we're Lutheran after all. We don't need to call it fall anything. Anyways, there would be some dressing up. I think as an adult, I dressed up for a Reformation Day party a few times, and there were some interesting costume choices I had. I think one of them I dressed up as, you're supposed to dress up as somebody from the time of the Reformation, so I dressed up as a plague doctor. The kids loved that one. And then I ended up wearing it to Walmart and during COVID, so I already had a plague doctor outfit, and people took pictures. It was fun. But what are you celebrating for Halloween? What exactly are you celebrating for Halloween, and why are you celebrating it? Now, first and foremost, you've got the people who right off the bat say, well, Halloween is this horrible, evil, satanic festival of celebrating, devil worship and whatever. I mean, historically, that wasn't the origin of it, at least. The problem is, maybe that is for some people. There are some people who absolutely take Halloween and use it as an example, as a day to go and do evil things. And the question is, does this corrupt the day? I mean, this is a day that the Lord has made. Is it something that we should not celebrate because other people have done bad things traditionally on this day as well? Have they corrupted it so much that it no longer represents what it originally stood for? So starting with the word Halloween, it's an abbreviation for All Hallows Eve. So this is the day before the Holy Day. Next day after Halloween, November 1st, is All Saints Day. All Saints Day is, again, this is another day that can be celebrated improperly or can be celebrated properly. I would say properly celebrated. All Saints Day is a Christian celebration of those saints in heaven and on earth. So we Christian brothers and sisters are all united in the same invisible universal church in heaven and on earth. So when you receive communion, for example, you're receiving the Lord's Supper at a table that extends not just to other churches on this earthly realm. You're not just in fellowship with other Christian churches, but you're also in fellowship with those Christian saints, those holy ones, those sanctified ones who are in heaven before you. So your beloved loved ones who've gone on to heaven before you. So All Saints Day, properly understood, is a celebration of all of the people that God has, thanks be to God that he has saved all of these people and clothed them with the white robe of salvation. So the day before All Saints Day would be the day before the Holy Day. All Hallows, hallow meaning holy, All Hallows Eve would be the day before, the day before All Saints Day. And then the question, and I've heard a lot of different things about this, about, what exactly the point of All Saints Day or of All Hallows Eve was. And there's two explanations that really stood out in my mind. First of all is that there is a tradition that you celebrate the day of celebration on the evening beforehand. So think, for example, the Sabbath. The Sabbath did not begin at midnight or, midnight 01 on Saturday morning. it actually began on sundown of Friday. Sundown on Friday was when the Sabbath began. So there is some of a tradition behind celebrating kind of the next day at sundown. And, when you're celebrating Halloween, you're really just celebrating it, when the lights go out and everybody gets candy and stuff. So that is potentially an answer as why, what is being celebrated for Halloween? Well, really, you're just celebrating All Saints' Day on the evening, in the same way that some people have Easter vigils, or some people have Christmas Eve vigils, where they celebrate the birth of Christ on Christmas Eve, or they celebrate the resurrection on late at night on Easter Eve, on Holy Saturday. So potentially that could be one explanation for what's being celebrated. Another explanation that I've heard as well is that because the next day is so holy, and this is like a superstitious explanation, because All Saints' Day is so holy, All Hallows Eve is the last opportunity that the little imps and demons and whatever have a chance to run around and cause mischief and stuff like this. Hence them running up to your house, and you have to bribe them with candy, or else they'll play a trick on you, or you have to scare them away with scary faces carved in pumpkins, or if you're in Germany, apparently like turnips or whatever. You can carve faces into vegetables. It's just like a thing that people have figured out all over the world. So those are kind of two different explanations I've heard for Halloween. Now, in the first explanation, okay, that's fantastic. Thanks be to God. You're celebrating glory is being given to God for the work that He has done to save the saints in heaven and those saints here on earth. In the second case, it's totally plausible to me, because human beings is this really stupid, superstitious inclination, and I could totally see these traditions develop where people are like, oh, tomorrow is holy, so Saturday night is gonna, if Sunday is a holy day, then Saturday night is gonna be the day when all the the goblins and the imps are running around and causing mischief. And then, like, I see it being possible, but I don't know for sure. But okay, so let's say that that's the origin of Halloween. That's the origin of the celebration on Halloween itself, not All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day, it's good if you do it the right way. It's bad if you're like, let's pray to the saints and worship the saints and say the saints are like doing a Dia de los Muertos thing. I mispronounced it. Dia de los Muertos thing. That's a pagan festival. But Halloween itself, okay. So potentially Halloween at this point isn't necessarily a bad thing. You're like, okay, well, it's just a celebration of God, and glory be to God. All right. So I'm looking at my points here. The origin of the word. Okay, I got through that. Other people misuse the day. Yeah, we've talked about this. And I think, other people sometimes do bad stuff on Halloween. And there's other days as well. And there's all kinds of horrible, stupid, demonic traditions that have come up of people coming up with bad things to do, anti-Christian things to do on Halloween. Now, just because they do something bad, does that mean the entire day is off limits for Christians to celebrate? I would say no, but you do have to be wary of, am I participating in something that somebody else is doing, an event that somebody else is hosting? So if somebody's have like a Samhain or Sanguine party or whatever it's called, and you're like, well, it's Halloween, so I'm just going to show up. Well, no, you're participating in a demonic festival, in a pagan ritual. It's different. It's not the same thing as Halloween. So again, potentially could be bad, either through intention or ignorance, but potentially isn't necessarily bad. Potentially even could be glorifying to God. So far, okay, we're still on the fence about Halloween, depending on how you celebrate and what you're celebrating. All right, what other points do I have? What was historically being celebrated? I kind of went through that. Is it All Saints being celebrated, or are we celebrating the tricking of demons to, give them treats so they don't play tricks on us, scare them away with jack-o'-lanterns? And how much of that is originally what was going on? The next part of this question is, what about in the U.S.? What was historically being celebrated about Halloween in the U.S.? Traditionally, I would say probably not all Saints' Day. That's probably not the tradition. At least in the generation before me and my generation, what is being celebrated in Halloween for the most part, and again, for the most part, is this is a day where we designate that it's okay to dress up, or for kids to dress up, and you either go and party with other people, or you go door to door and you receive candy from other people in your neighborhood. And neither of those things is in and of itself bad. Like, let's say you just came up with a Hallmark holiday and you're like, this is the holiday when we dress up and have candy. Like, okay. I mean, it's not really a holy day at that point. It's just kind of a festival. I don't even know what word to use for that. It's a designated party day, right? It's a designated day it's like Talk Like a Pirate Day. Talk Like a Pirate Day isn't a holiday, but people can, people can participate in it. In the same sense, in a lot of ways, as a Western, as a United States culture, our celebration of Halloween is not as a holy day, but as this is a designated day where kids get candy and dress up and goof off in the same way another day might be Talk Like a Pirate Day. It's, in that sense, it's innocuous. Again, you can abuse that, but just in that sense, at least, it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong about dressing up and collecting candy. And even there are some benefits to it too. I was watching, I think I mentioned this already in this video. I watched that Mike Winger video, and Winger, poor guy. I didn't get his name right. He had a video where he talked about this Halloween thing, and he talked about a bunch of aspects of it. And he said that there was actually there could potentially be a benefit of community. There is a sense of community that is built up of your kids interacting with the neighbors, in a supervised environment, right? If you're taking your kids trick or treating or whatever, excuse me, taking your kids trick or treating and you're meeting the neighbors and you're giving candy to other kids and the neighbors, and like I could see that as that's benefit. Now again, there's some ancient Christian traditions of certain holidays where the orphans would go around and they would get candy and food and stuff from other people. And I don't think that's related. That's not what we've ever been celebrating in the United States. Okay. What other questions? What do people celebrate today? That's kind of what I was talking about. Not really anything. We're not celebrating anything. Okay. Here's another question that I was looking into. What about the origin of Halloween? Like, let's say you were talking about Halloween and you're saying, well, Halloween was, let's say the origin, like forget the Sabbath evening thing, before All Saints Day. Let's just say that Halloween is a day when you're focusing on scaring away the evil spirits and stuff like that. Something pagan, something not Christian, something not good. If that is the origin, should we participate in whatever westernized United States version we have today? If the origin is so bad, should we avoid the thing entirely? And I can see a case being made for that. But you need to make it consistently if you're going to do that. If you're going to say, because Halloween had these horrible origins and therefore we cannot celebrate anything we celebrate now on Halloween, then you're going to need to do the same thing with things like the Olympics and organized sports. Think about like gladiatorial matches and the Colosseum games and whether it's, these things that Christians traditionally would not participate in. Well, not intentionally. Yeah, Christians did participate in the Colosseum, though a lot of it was not intentional. And it was, it was blood fests, and it was a celebration of murder and violence. And sometimes, Olympic games and stuff would be held for funerals and these things would often be tied in with kind of pagan ideas and the celebration of, polytheism, stuff like that. Do we want to say that because the origin of organized sports in the Olympics is tied in with these pagan customs, that we should have nothing to do as Christians with the Olympics and with sports, and with sports whatsoever? You need to say that if you're going to be consistent about Halloween, and you're saying, well, we can't do Halloween because Halloween was originally this thing, and we do something completely different now, but it's tied to this original evil thing. You got to be consistent if you're going to do that. All right, what else did I put? Let me see. Is it possible to celebrate it without giving honor to the origin, whether it's Halloween or whether it's the Olympics? Oh, here's another one. Here's a point. So in terms of, okay, well, how do you celebrate Halloween, and can you celebrate it in a sinful way or in a way that isn't necessarily sinful? And one of the ways that I think that people overlook potentially sinful aspect here is the celebration of the spooky. And the word spooky is thrown around so frequently that you're just like, okay, whatever. It's a goofy little, it's a G-rated word. And ooh, it's spooky Halloween. You got spooky ghosts and goblins and such. But there is a concept in which, obviously, when you're celebrating Halloween, you shouldn't be celebrating the satanic. You shouldn't be dressing up as demons and witches and stuff. Should you be dressing up as vampires? Well, vampires, traditionally were tied with the demonic in historical whatever. But again, that gets back to the previous argument. But what about things like dressing up with, these gory costumes, zombies and skeletons and stuff like that? What about dressing up like Charlie Brown in a white sheet? Well, not that white sheet, like a ghost. You know what I'm saying? Like a ghost, like this concept of Halloween where we celebrate the spooky. And maybe this is overanalyzing this a bit, but celebrating the spooky. Are you celebrating fear? Are you saying, fear is something that should be celebrated? Whereas, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but, fear of like ghosts and stuff. Like, is there a celebration of death? Is there a celebration of these things that are antithetical to the Christian religion and the identity of God, death and fear of death and fear in general? I think, boy, if your conscience troubles you on this spot, then just don't do it at all. But I think that there is a case to be made that we're just kind of, by taking demons and making them cute little imps with little teeny cute horns and a pointy tail, and by taking something like fear and replacing fear with the word spooky and boo and all these other things, there is a trivialization of evil. There is a degree where this is a trivialization of evil, and then we need to be aware of that. And I don't think we should ever trivialize evil. We should never celebrate evil, of course. We should definitely never do that. But I think in some ways, and again, I'm inviting you for input on this. In some ways, we can sin by trivializing the things, and I don't know. I don't know where's the specific line for that. But it's something that that you should think about, you should pray about, and you should consider. You say, well, even if it's, it's just fun. Haunted houses are just fun, and dressing up as zombies is just fun, and all these scary things and violence is just fun. Like at a certain point, okay. I don't know. It's the celebration of gore, the celebration of violence, the celebration of fear. Even if you're calling it spooky instead of terror, I don't know. This is something that you should consider, whether you're trying to figure out whether Halloween is or isn't a sin to celebrate. All right. Last thing I have written down. I said, is it possible to celebrate Halloween as a casual dress-up thing without glorifying the negative? And this is something. So this year is the first year that I've ever really, I don't want to say fully celebrated Halloween, but this year I took the kids to their school. What do they, Fall Festival or Fall Fling or something they called it. They didn't call it Halloween. They called it, so it's different, right? They should have called it Reformation Festival. We should have done a Reformation thing, but still, So I took them there, and there were rules there set up in place. So there's not going to be people dressed up as anything satanic, as anything evil. There's not going to be people dressed up as witches and demons and ghouls and stuff like that. And when I went, it was beanbag toss, it was a cakewalk, it was bobbing for apples, it was trunk or treat, going and the different trunks. One was dressed up as Mario, one had some pirates, and one was Noah's Ark, things like that. Where it was a fun little party that the kids were invited to, and because of the rules in place, I think my personal emotional conviction is that there was nothing specifically wrong with this thing. The kids dressed up, they got candy, and they did these things, and we were able to celebrate something on. Well, it wasn't on Halloween; it was last week, but basically, we were able to celebrate Halloween without celebrating the negative aspects. So far, at least, in my experiences, it is possible. You have to be intentional, though. And a lot of Christianity is about being intentional. Like, what am I celebrating? Why am I doing this thing that I'm doing? What could I potentially be doing that I'm not paying attention to, that I'm not aware of? And in this case, being intentional about celebrating the good and the true, the beautiful and the virtuous, I think it is possible to have a nice party day where kids dress up and do candy and cakewalks and all these other things, and you call it Fall Fling or Fall Festival or Reformation Festival or Halloween party. You could call it that too if you wanted to, and you could potentially do this without slipping into the negative aspects. Now, the real challenge is going to be tonight, because I've never gone trick-or-treating, and I'm going to take my kids trick-or-treating for the first time ever. And maybe for the last time ever. We'll see. And I wanted to go through this myself and experience this and say, okay, what actually, because, I've always seen depictions. I mean, this is so weird. It's like, oh, you've never been trick-or-treating? Yeah, I've seen like what it looks like on TV and movies and stuff like that. But going through the experience, I'm going to see, okay, I expect that it's not going to be possible to just go publicly trick-or-treating without, you're interacting with, skeletons and zombies and all dismembered body parts on the lawn and stuff like that. So I think that potentially it could be, in the future, I think we might just do trunk or treating, so like a controlled Christian environment, a controlled, intentional environment where Christians are celebrating good things instead of allowing for anything to show up. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see. But this is one of these examples where I want to go through the experience one time with my eyes wide open to kind of see what I think about this and better answer this question: is it a sin to celebrate Halloween? So If this has given you some things to think about, if you want me to think about a few things, please leave them in the comment section below. Try to answer the question, is it a sin to celebrate Halloween? And however you're doing it, is it a sin to do what I'm doing? Am I glorifying God? Am I loving my neighbor? These sorts of things. Be intentional. I guess if I have a tagline for this channel, it's slowly turning into be an intentional Christian. Know what you are doing and why. And this will prevent you from so many errors. Anyways, happy Reformation Day. God bless you all, and